Hey guys, welcome to another video, and as every time I say it, it's going to be a little bit different. But this time we're going to talk about the films that comfort me the most. And by this I mean the films that I put every time that I'm feeling down or that I'm a bit stressed with studying, and all of a sudden I'm happy again. So with all being said, let's begin. So we're going to start with a film that is heavily inspired by the haunting of the journey of Dante's and his 9 Circles of Hell, by making this journey of this film be about the discovery of the Philosopher's Stone in the depths of the earth. And by this I mean the Paris Catacombs. In As Above So Below, we are introduced to this protagonist who's making a documentary about her exploration to finding clues to get the location of this Philosopher's Stone, which is a treasure she's trying to get her hands on since her dad was the one who started but didn't complete it, so she has to finish what he started. The claustrophobia atmosphere in the catacombs in Paris is probably the most tense and anxious feeling you'll have in any film, as we view the desperation of our characters trying to get to the stone while being put to the tests to see if they're worthy or not. So they face the deadly trials of the 9 Circles of Hell, or Dante had to confront in his Divine Comedy, where the characters now are presented with the most gruesome and disturbing hallucinations they had to endure and surpass to further the journey to get the location to this stone. The subplots of the characters introduced that were part of the trials of each one of them in the catacombs was done amazingly, as now we understand their background and the real reasons they had to wanting to find this stone. Also, the plot twist at the end and the true understanding of the film's title was one of the most fulfilling sequences I've ever felt in horror, as we view how relieved and free they felt after exiting the catacombs and having found what they had been looking for the whole time. Vampires are probably the most fascinating creatures in horror cinema. Their existence comes from the very beginning of film and cinema with Count Dracula, so their history and mythology is massive, with a lot of stories to tell. At number 4 we will discuss the story of Fright Night, the remake actually. That's about a vampire who relocates himself into a suburban neighborhood to feast on his vulnerable neighbors, and also traps them for his disgusting sexual desires. The comedy element in this film is well accomplished, as the interactions between our son and his mom are heavily comedic, especially when the son is trying to gather enough information by spying on his vampire neighbor to actually accuse him of being an actual vampire, and also making his mom believe so. This mysterious and crime drama element makes this film feel so interesting and immersive, as we follow the protagonist as he searches more about the mythology of vampires so he can acquire better tactics to spy on his vampire neighbor, so he also can protect him and his mom against this god-awful neighbor, such as not inviting him over to his house, which leads to the vampire not being able to come in. Colin Farrell is the perfect vampire, as in my opinion he resembles one perfectly, not only with his charismatic and mysterious vibe, but also with his dark and eerie physical characteristics that makes him be one of the best portrayals of this mythological horror creature. Also, David Tennant is one other perfect portrayal, but this time of a vampire hunter, with his egocentrical and narcissistic personality. That makes him go from this fake hunter to a real one by helping our protagonist and his mom on the slaughter of this vampire. A comfort film for many is one that immerses them completely into the storyline and makes them feel good later on. The Witch does exactly that, with its slow-paced and well-developed storyline and characters that takes place in Old England and bases its dread in folk horror. Which means that the myths and urban legends about the deep woods that have upon them pagan rituals involving witches affects this family of the film. Mainly our lead protagonist Thomason, as she's being accused of being a witch for the disappearance of her newborn brother. This whole core element affects heavily the relationship between the family and the trust they have on one another, since with the runtime of this film, more unexplainable occurrences start to happen, and truly the only one to blame is our dear Thomason, who denies everything even though that's not gonna change the mindset of her parents and her siblings. The usage of an animal to act as a demon and to convey our dear Thomason, who really has nothing left in her life, to become a witch and to enter the pagan ritual world was a great plot twist. As throughout the film we have high amounts of hints that tell us that the black sheep is the devil and is the one who is pulling the strings and destroying this family altogether. This mysterious and eerie atmosphere of not only the home of this family, but also the horrifying deep woods makes this film transcend aesthetically and be pleasant through the beauty of its surroundings, in which creates this visually stunning experience that will be hard to forget. Here we get into the film that I've seen the most and that I play every time that I'm feeling down or stressed. Scream is the ultimate feel-good film for everyone. A sarcastic horror depiction on the slasher genre that explores and deconstructs its tropes and cliches. I have no doubt that this film is and will always be beloved by both horror and non-horror fans for its fun and entertaining viewing and the many unforgettable and relatable scenes, especially the very beginning, since it's the most talked about first sequence in any film ever. The overall basic premise with its well-written and acted characters and also with its high school vibe makes this film a teen slasher, but in reality it's much more than that. As even though this film was inspired by previous slashers, it also made future horror films be inspired by it. It'd be with the amazing setup of its high school and its town, or the amazing plot twist when revealing the killers that no one really predicted. Scream also introduced a lot of non-horror folks to the genre, and the innovation it was back in the day to make these all over the place sarcastic horror filled with references only Wes Craven can create. The character of Neve Campbell will always be regarded as a fan favorite final girl along with the classics such as Jamie Lee Curtis. This film proves that horror can be different, that it can grow and be something never seen before, and that it can be fun but also terrifying. Now we delve into the ultimate aesthetic experience. A perfect combination between synthwave background music with eerie yet divine shots and sequences that created this environment that immerses and comforts you to the fullest. It follows the journey of a high school student who is looking for a relationship and someone to be by her side. But what she got was something like that, but worse. As after she got into this sexual relationship with this man she met, she's now being followed by this entity who wants to get to her. Problem is she doesn't know how to stop it, as she is the only one who can see this being. Her vulnerability and innocence is what got her to be the perfect victim for this entity, since the man, in order to get rid of it, had to pass it to another person via sexual intercourse. So now she and her friends are trying to discover a solution to kill this entity once and for all, because none of them want to be responsible for another person's demise. The way that this introduction of this entity and also the journey our characters have to endure together is portrayed stunningly, by long panning shots of sequences that are mixed with a beautiful and eerie soundtrack that emphasizes the emotions these sequences are trying to transcend. With this, the film makes us relate to the characters and care about them, whereas now we want them to succeed on defeating this horrible curse so they can return to their meaningful lives. Once more, it follows, illustrates and demonstrates how a horror film can be beautiful yet horrifying, as when we view the disturbing occurrences, we also feel connected to them and become one with the aesthetic experience that we are having. If you haven't watched this cult classic, please do, but do it in a well put together ambiance so you can retain the fullest experience this film is trying to convey. Thank you guys for watching another video. I loved making this list because it's fascinating to talk about movies that comfort you and that relax you. So another time, thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.